we knew it was going to be coming, or at least it should have been implied that this decision was going to be coming because Colorado's primary is right around the corner, and the Supreme Court had already heard oral arguments a couple weeks ago. So we were just kind of waiting for this impending decision, and I think everyone who was paying attention was pretty confident that this was going to be the decision. So I think we were like, well, is it going to be 8-1 or 9-0? Now, it was 9-0. But the Supreme Court did assert that the responsibility for enforcing the clause against federal office holders and candidates lies with the Congress, not with the states. And the ruling also marked the first instance where the Supreme Court had the opportunity to define what constitutes engaging in insurrection, as outlined in the third section of the 14th Amendment. So some discrepancies within that ruling, but overall 9-0 ruling.
Yeah, it's weird, right? 9-0. I mean, handed them a shutout. I mean, just take the L, Colorado. I mean, they're down there trying to play law and justices, and the Supreme Court just gave them a smackdown. I think they had to. I would love to know. I'd love to be a fly on the wall. I don't even know if this is how it works, but I'd love to know if there was any communication in the halls of the Supreme Court, like basically saying, listen, if we come out 5-4 on this thing, there's going to be some massive unrest in our country. This was a thing that, you're playing fast and loose with the Constitution, the interpretation of the 14th Amendment. You're letting judicial activism get in the way of the rule of law. There's so many implications that are there. So I'm thankful. I think this had to come out 9-0.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we're on the precipice of some significant unrest in our society if this is a closer vote.
Right.
Because I think we're sitting in a lot of ways on a powder keg, and God only knows what might have happened if the Supreme Court had sided with the Colorado Supreme Court.
Which, I mean, again, it was like you're looking at it and you're like, they don't have a case. Clearly, they don't have a case. But how many times have we seen them not have a case and still the liberal activists on the court end up siding against the Constitution anyway?
Yeah, because you get back into the thing where you're interpreting the law or interpreting the Constitution based on a fantasy world. It's something that you came up with. You felt this way. Your emotions ruled out, and it just kind of replaced the rule of law, and it replaced facts and truth. He hasn't been. We can rehearse the words and the vocabulary, right? The buzzwords. He's never been accused of insurrection. He certainly hasn't been convicted of insurrection. So to call this president seditious and try to keep him off the ballot, and I think their argument, and I could be wrong on this, but I'm just kind of paraphrasing. They basically said because he has been disqualified from being president, therefore we're going to keep him off the ballot in Colorado. When was he disqualified? Because it disqualified maybe in the court of public opinion in Colorado, but we know how high those people are. So, I don't know how you're thinking or what you're thinking, but this is when you replace the rule of law, the Constitution, and strict interpretation of that precious document with how you feel and judicial activism. I mean, whether it's lawfare or judicial tyranny, which I've called it for the last couple of years, this is a boot on your neck tactic to tell the people of Colorado, we're going to dictate to you how you can vote, who you can vote for, and then we're going to say we're protecting democracy. You're doing the exact opposite.
So I'm glad that you brought up that term democracy, because they like to throw around the word democracy as if we are one, which we're not, right. But B, as if that is the most important. Not only do they claim we're one, but it also is the most important thing to keep, to cherish, to uphold, all these things. And then you have people like Keith Olbermann, who tweeted out earlier, the Supreme Court has betrayed democracy. Its members, including Jackson Kagan and Sotomayor, have proved themselves inept at reading comprehension. And collectively, the court has shown itself to be corrupt and illegitimate. It must be dissolved. So now we have to save democracy by removing political opponents from presidential ballots. That's how we're going to save democracy, Chad. That's how we're going to do it. We're just going to eliminate people's right to be on the ballot and eliminate the people's right to vote for these candidates.
Yeah, and then you're just going to eliminate the third branch of the American government.
Right.
Like you're just going to get rid of the judiciary.
We don't need that. They're a threat to democracy.
They didn't go the way Keith Olbermann thought it should go. So we're going to get rid of, our 9 Supreme Court justices and just, these people, what they always accuse the right of doing, if you'll just listen to them long enough, they'll say the quiet parts out loud. They want a dictatorship.
Yes.
They want fascism. They want the military turned against American civilians. They want the president of the United States to be. I mean, when Whoopi Goldberg comes out on The View and says, Joe Biden should throw all Republicans into jail, this is what they want. So if you're going to completely throw out all 9 Supreme Court justices, just get rid of the Supreme Court like a guy like Keith Olbermann, and I don't know how much anybody takes seriously the opinion of a Keith Olbermann. I mean, they don't take my opinion seriously, so I don't know why they would take his seriously. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all commentators and entertainers. Yeah,
but there's something quite unhinged about Keith Olbermann these days. Like, you have to believe that
Not just these days.
Well, you have to believe that he just doesn't even have a family member who's willing to tell him, like, hey, you're really crazy and you need help.
I watch these people and I'm like, if I ever get that far out on the limb. Now, look, I'm like you. We don't make any apologies about it. Sometimes we get on there, we punch through the smoke just to see if anybody's listening or if we've been shadow banned or if we could still stir shit up. Mm-hmm. This guy's beyond that. Stephen King is beyond that. Whoopi Goldberg. These people have lost their freaking mind. Like, I would hope that if I got that far out on that shaky branch, that somebody that loves me enough, I would hope, Sarah, that you would call me and be like, Chad, bro, what are you? Did you break up? I mean, are you
okay?
Are you contemplating things? Do you need to call a hotline? Can we get you help? Should we have an intervention? Did your wiener fall off? I mean, what is wrong, dude? Because this is climactic.
So all of this is true. Keith Olbermann is like batshit crazy. That is absolutely correct. But the idea that we have to save democracy by removing a presidential candidate from the ballot is not just crazy people like Keith Olbermann, because now the Democrats, after this ruling was announced, which I'm sure that they probably had a feeling that it was going to play out this way if they listened to the oral arguments where Colorado's, lawyers got shredded in the process by people like Ketanji Brown Jackson. And you're like, if the lady who can't even tell you what a woman is completely obliterating your argument into the Supreme Court, you probably don't have a chance. But since this ruling, it's been Jamie Raskin, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and Eric Swalwell who have now said that they are going to try to introduce legislation. Since the Supreme Court said it has to be a law, it has to go through Congress, it can't go this way. You're just a state, you can't do it. So they're like, fine. We have an intention to revive legislation that would establish a process disqualifying individuals, specifically targeting those involved in insurrection under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. So here we go all over again. Now they said, all right, well, the Supreme Court said we can only do it through Congress, so that's what we're going to do. Again, to save democracy. We're going to save democracy, Chad.
And if you guys think this is just about Donald Trump, obviously it's not. Any candidate that was out there, I don't care if it was Nikki Haley, they'd be calling Nikki Haley an insurrectionist too if she was the Republican candidate. And you Ron DeSantis, apologist, listen, God bless Ron DeSantis, but they would be saying he's even worse.
They already you already saw them starting to do that when he entered the primary process.
But he's worse. I said that on my show a long time ago. They're just going to add 3 words to their descriptions of Ron DeSantis. So I will say this to those of you who look forward to a Ron DeSantis candidacy in 2028, as do I. You better be glad Donald Trump is the sacrificial lamb at this stage in the game, so at least you can, if you'll read the tea leaves a little better than you did in Ron's campaign this go around, maybe you'll know what's coming for you in 2028. But you guys got your head under the rock, and I don't care who gets pissed off at me at this point in time. Listen, Donald Trump is the guy for such a time as this because he is the sacrificial lamb. There's very few people on the planet that could take the pressure that's been thrown on this guy, the weight that's been put on his shoulders, the indictments, the accusations, the falsehoods, all of the stuff that's out there. It's like, let this guy be the gladiator that he is, throw your support behind him, and I'm telling you, if you think this is just about Donald Trump, you're dumb. They're going to come after every Republican candidate in perpetuity from now on that the GOP puts out there. And this is the type of rhetoric they're going to use. They're not just going to move legislation or use the Supreme Court of a various state to remove them from the ballot. They're going to do it with, it's not just about Trump, they're going to do it with every single one of them. You're a MAGA extremist Republican. That's what the President of the United States has called you. You've already been labeled. You've been classified. You're a neo-Nazi. You're a fascist. You're every damn thing else that they can come up with. So you're all guilty of that whole deal. And they're going to use people like Swalwell and Wasserman Schultz. They're all these pinheads who we know, my God, when they put their head together, it sounds like a bowling alley. There's not a collective thought there. There's no complexity whatsoever. I mean, there's just synapses are not firing. And they're going to introduce legislation to get a Republican candidate removed from the ballot. A house divided can't stand. This is a house of cards. America's in trouble. I mean, our days are done because we're so divided. There's no way.
Let me give you more. Well, let me give you one more way that they're trying to save
There's
democracy.
more?
There's more. But wait, there's more. So Attorney General Merrick Garland, over the weekend, do you? He was talking about election integrity efforts. And I want to keep in mind, like, election integrity efforts are like, hey, you should have an ID to vote. Hey, we probably shouldn't just have drop boxes that you can just drop off ballots. Like, maybe we should have a more secure process, to protect that precious democracy that you guys are always screaming about. And Merrick Garland, the United States Attorney General, came out over the weekend and was like, yeah, those are just burdensome and unnecessary. Watch.
The right to vote is still under attack.
Yeah,
and
no kidding.
And that is why the Justice
From you.
Department is fighting back. That is why one of the first things I did when I came into office was to double the size of the voting section of the Civil Rights Division. That is why we are challenging efforts by states and jurisdictions to implement discriminatory, burdensome, and unnecessary restrictions on access to the ballot, including those related to mail-in voting, the use of drop boxes, and voter ID requirements. That is why we are working to block the adoption of discriminatory redistricting plans that dilute the vote of Black voters and other voters of color.
So, call me crazy, okay? Personally, I think it's a little racist to assume that Black people are too damn dumb to get an ID.
Thank you.
I think that's a little I think that's racist. I think Black people are quite capable of getting an ID to vote. I don't understand what the controversy is here.
Let's interpret what the Attorney General just said in I'm assuming a Black church. That's the first I've seen of that.
In Alabama.
Okay. Everyone in front of me here today is too stupid and incapable of getting an ID and being able to go vote. So we're going to step up our discriminatory practices so that those of you who are too inept to identify yourself at a polling location can get your vote counted. That's an insult.
It is.
Stop with the nonsense of saying we're going to find some other way to scam the system, lower the standard so that, listen, I was at a polling place the other day. I voted early in the state of Texas. I looked around. It was a crowd. There were a lot of people. The line was out the door. I wasn't specifically paying attention to skin color, but now that I look back, pretty much everybody was there. There were elderly people. There was a lady on a walker. They actually said, you know what? You skipped the line. Come around the back. Wait, we're going to help you in.
If you like this clip and you want to see the full episode, click here. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, come on, you know you do. Click here.